Echoes from the Land of the Bow, a history of the Nubian Kingdoms and their sovereigns. Prologue, the land and the people. Before the pharaohs unified Egypt, the banks of the Nile south of the First Cataract were home to one of Africa's earliest and most formidable civilizations, Nubia. For millennia, the history of Nubia and Egypt was one of rivalry, exchange, conquest, and cultural fusion. The Nubians were the people of the bow, renowned for their martial prowess, their control over vast gold reserves, and their role as the primary conduit for trade between sub-Saharan Africa and the Mediterranean world. This is the history of their kingdoms, Kerma, Napata, and Meroë, whose legacies, written in stone and sand, challenge the traditional, Egypt-centric narrative of the Nile Valley. It is a story of powerful kings and Kandakes, queens, of a succession that stretched for over 3,000 years, and of a civilization that, while borrowing from its northern neighbor, forged a uniquely African identity that endures to this day. Chapter 1. The Dawn of Power, the Kerma Kingdom. The foundations of Kerma. The first great Nubian kingdom emerged around the city of Kerma, just south of the Third Cataract. Located in a fertile basin, Kerma began as a large settlement around 2500 BCE, growing to become the capital of a state the Egyptians called Kush. Initially, Egyptian records depict Kush as a collection of chiefdoms, but by 2000 BCE, it had centralized into a formidable kingdom that directly threatened Egypt's southern frontier. Kerma's wealth was built on three pillars. Agriculture, the rich alluvial plains supported a large population. Gold, the deserts of Nubia were Egypt's primary source of gold, and Kerma controlled the mines and trade routes. Trade, Kerma acted as a middleman, funneling ivory, ebony, incense, exotic animal skins, and slaves from the African interior to Egypt. The Deffufas and divine kings. The power of Kerma's rulers is best exemplified by its architecture. The Western Deffufa, a massive mud brick temple complex rising over 18 meters high, is one of the oldest and largest religious structures in Africa. It served as a spiritual center, anchoring a belief system that, like Egypt's, revolved around a divine or semi-divine king. Burial customs provide the clearest evidence of this kingship. Early royal tombs were large pits containing the ruler, surrounded by hundreds of retainers, servants, guards, and women who were sacrificed to accompany him into the afterlife. This practice, which reached its zenith around 1750 to 1550 BCE, demonstrates a level of central authority and religious power that rivaled anything in contemporary Egypt. Kings of Kerma and the line of succession. The names of Kerma's early kings are lost to history, known only through Egyptian texts that refer to the rulers of Kush as a collective threat. Archaeology, not written records, tells the story of their succession. The royal cemetery at Kerma contains vast tumulus tombs, and their increasing size and richness over time chart the kingdom's growing power. A significant figure from the later period is King Nedjeh, who is known from Egyptian sources. During Egypt's Second Intermediate Period, circa 1650 to 1550 BCE, when the Hyksos ruled the north and a native Egyptian dynasty ruled from Thebes, Nedjeh's Kush formed a strategic alliance with the Hyksos against Thebes. A famous message from the Hyksos king Apophis to the ruler of Kush, intercepted by the Thebans, pleads for an attack on Thebes from the south. This reveals a Kerma king powerful enough to be a key player in a pan-Nile power struggle. The line of succession in the Kerma kingdom is largely conjectural, based on tomb sequences. Early Kerma, circa 2500 to 2050 BCE, a series of unnamed chiefs kings buried in progressively larger tumuli. Middle Kerma, circa 2050 to 1750 BCE, the kingdom centralizes. Royal tombs show increased wealth and the beginning of human sacrifice. Classic Kerma, circa 1750 to 1550 BCE, the zenith. Key rulers include unnamed king, contemporary with the Hyksos invasion of Egypt. King Nedjeh, or a similar name, the ally of the Hyksos. The last king of Kerma, his name is unknown, but his reign ended in defeat. The Egyptian conquest. The resurgence of a unified Egypt under the new kingdom pharaohs spelled the end for Kerma. Pharaohs like Kamose and Ahmose I fought against the Kushite Hyksos alliance. The final blow was delivered by Thutmose I around 1500 BCE, who marched south, destroyed the city of Kerma, and extended the Egyptian border to the Fourth Cataract. For the next 500 years, Nubia was a colony of Egypt, its culture and institutions heavily Egyptianized. Chapter 2: The Black Pharaohs, the Napatan period and the 25th dynasty. The rise of Napata. As Egyptian power waned during the Third Intermediate Period, c. 1069 to 664 BCE, its grip on Nubia loosened. A new power center emerged at Napata, near the Fourth Cataract, strategically located at the foot of the holy mountain Jebel Barkal. The Egyptians believed the state god Amun resided within this distinctive flat-topped mountain, and the Nubians adopted and adapted this cult, making it the central tenet of their kingship. The rulers of Napata, who were deeply Egyptianized but fiercely Nubian, began to assert their independence. They saw themselves not as conquerors, but as restorers of the true Egyptian faith and culture, which they believed had decayed in the north. Piye, the founder of an empire. The first of the Black Pharaohs to leave a detailed account of his conquests was Piye, also known as Pianki, c. 744 to 714 BCE. His victory stela, discovered at Jebel Barkal, is one of the most important texts from the ancient Nile Valley. It describes how, in response to the encroachment of a northern coalition of rulers, Piye marched north with a powerful army. He captured city after city, culminating in the siege of Memphis. His piety is a central theme. He is depicted as a devout follower of Amun, purifying the conquered temples and restoring proper rituals. After his victory, he received the submission of the rival kings and then, remarkably, returned to Napata, content to rule a vast empire from his southern capital. Shabarko, Shabitko, and Taharqo, the zenith and challenge. Piye's successors consolidated the empire and ruled as pharaohs of all Egypt. Shabarko, c. 714 to 705 BCE, Piye's brother. He formally assumed the title of Pharaoh of Egypt, establishing the 25th dynasty. He moved the royal court to Memphis and is known for his building projects and for preserving one of the oldest known copies of the Egyptian Book of the Dead on a leather scroll, the Shabarko stone. Shabitko, c. 705 to 690 BCE, Shabarko's nephew. He continued his uncle's policies and began to face the growing threat of the Neo-Assyrian Empire, which was expanding into the Levant. Taharqo, c. 690 to 664 BCE, the most famous and powerful of the Nubian pharaohs. His reign was a golden age of construction and prosperity. He built or restored temples throughout Egypt and Nubia, including magnificent structures at Karnak, Tanis, and at Jebel Barkal and Kowa in Nubia. However, his ambitions clashed directly with the Assyrians. Despite initial successes, the Assyrian king Esarhaddon invaded Egypt, and though he was initially repelled, his successor Ashurbanipal launched a full-scale invasion. Taharqo was eventually driven from Memphis and then Thebes, retreating to his Nubian homeland. Tantamani and the final retreat. Tantamani, c. 664 to 656 BCE, Taharqo's nephew, made one last, desperate attempt to reclaim Egypt. He marched north, briefly recapturing Memphis and Thebes. However, Ashurbanipal's response was swift and brutal. The Assyrian army sacked Thebes so thoroughly that its echo is found in the biblical book of Nahum, "Are you better than Thebes? Her infants were dashed to pieces at the head of every street." This event marked the end of Nubian rule in Egypt. Tantamani fled to Napata, and the 25th dynasty was over. The line of succession of the early Napatan period. The succession was fraternal, often passing between brothers before going to the next generation. Alara, c. 780 to 760 BCE, a semi-legendary founder, unified Upper Nubia. Kashta, c. 760 to 747 BCE, Alara's brother, expanded influence into Upper Egypt. Piye, c. 747 to 716 BCE, son of Kashta, conquered Egypt but ruled from Napata. Shabarko, c. 716 to 702 BCE, brother of Piye, became pharaoh of all Egypt. Shabitko, c. 702 to 690 BCE, son of Piye, Shabarko. Taharqo, c. 690 to 664 BCE, son of Piye. Tantamani, c. 664 to 656 BCE, son of Shabarko, or Shabitko, Chapter 3. The southern seat of power, the Meroitic period. The move to Meroë. After the Assyrian expulsion, the Kushite kingdom continued to rule from Napata for another 3 centuries. However, a combination of factors, increasing pressure from Egypt, now under the Ptolemies, the desiccation of the Napata region, and the economic potential of lands further south, prompted a decisive shift. The royal cemetery moved from Nuri, near Napata, to Meroë around 300 BCE, marking the start of the Meroitic period. Meroë, located between the 5th and 6th cataracts, was in a savanna region with ample rainfall and iron ore deposits. This Birmingham of Africa became a center for iron smelting, giving the kingdom a technological and military advantage. It was also better positioned to control trade routes from the Red Sea and the African interior. The Hellenistic world and Rome. The Meroitic kingdom now interacted with a different Mediterranean world, that of Alexander the Great's successors and, later, the Roman Empire. A famous conflict occurred with Augustus Caesar. Around 25 BCE, a Meroitic army led by a Kandake queen, named Amanirenas attacked Roman garrisons in Upper Egypt, capturing several towns and pulling down statues of Augustus. The Roman counterattack, led by Prefect Petronius, was fierce. He marched south, sacking Napata. However, the Meroites harassed the Roman forces, and a stalemate was reached. By 2120 BCE, a peace treaty was signed at Samos, favorable to Meroë. The border was fixed at Hagia Sycaminos, Maharaca, and Meroë was exempted from paying tribute to Rome. It was a diplomatic triumph for Amanirenas. The Meroitic script and a unique identity. The most significant development of this period was the creation of the Meroitic script. Sometime in the 2nd century BCE, the Kushites developed their own writing system, with both a hieroglyphic script, used for monuments, and a cursive script, for everyday administration. While the phonetic values of the 23 signs are known, the Meroitic language itself remains largely untranslated, a final barrier protecting the secrets of this civilization. This linguistic shift, along with changes in art, religion, with the rise of the lion god Apidemak alongside Amun, and burial practices, pyramids became steeper, signals a conscious move away from the Egyptian cultural hegemony of the Napatan period. Meroë was asserting its own, distinct African identity. The power of the Kandakes. The Meroitic period is notable for the frequency and power of its ruling queens, the Kandakes, a title, likely meaning Queen Mother, which was later Greco-Romanized as Candace. They were not merely royal consorts, they were sovereigns in their own right, leading armies and governing the state. Key Kandakes include Amanirenas, c. 40 to 10 BCE, the one-eyed queen who fought the Romans to a standstill. Amani-Shakito, c. 10 BCE, 1 CE, a wealthy queen whose pyramid at Meroë was found looted but still contained magnificent gold jewelry in the 19th century. Amanitor, c. 1 to 25 CE, ruled alongside King Nata Kamani, her corregent, possibly her son. This period was a golden age of building, with numerous temples and pyramids constructed at Narka and Meroë. She is mentioned in the New Testament, Acts 8 verse 27. Kandake, c. 170 to 150 BCE, the earliest known ruling Kandake, who appears in full royal regalia on temple reliefs, smiting her enemies. The line of succession in the Meroitic period. The succession was complex and not fully linear, due to the poorly understood Meroitic language and the practice of co-regency. The succession was likely matrilineal, with the right to rule passing through the royal women, the Kandakes. A king was often the son of a previous king and a royal woman, and he might rule alongside his mother, a Kandake, or another female relative. A simplified, partial sequence of key rulers includes Arkamani I, c. 270 to 260 BCE, one of the first kings buried at Meroë. Queen Kandake, c. 170 to 150 BCE, first sovereign queen. Queen Amanirenas and King Taharqo, c. 40 to 10 BCE, she was the primary ruler during the Roman War. Queen Amani-Shakito, c. 10 BCE, 1 CE. King Nata Kamani and Queen Amanitor, c. 1 to 25 CE, the great builder king and his powerful co-regent queen. King Shorkara, c. 25 to 50 CE, successor, likely son of Nata Kamani and Amanitor. Chapter 4: Decline, Legacy, and Successor States. The fall of Meroë. By the 3rd century CE, the kingdom of Meroë was in decline. Several factors contributed to its collapse. Environmental degradation, overgrazing and deforestation for iron production likely led to ecological stress. Economic shifts, the rise of the Aksumite kingdom in modern Ethiopia, and new trade routes via the Red Sea bypassed the Nile corridor, undermining Meroë's economic base. Internal strife, evidence suggests political fragmentation in its final years. External threats, raids from the nomadic Blemis from the eastern desert and the growing power of Aksum weakened the state. Around 350 CE, an Aksumite king named Ezana recorded a military campaign against the Nubia, likely a Meroitic subgroup or a new people, and claimed to have destroyed the city of the Kushites. While the exact nature of this conquest is debated, it marks the conventional end of the Meroitic state. The post-Meroitic period and the kingdoms of Napata, Mercuria, and Alodia. The fall of Meroë did not mean the end of civilization in Nubia. 3 Christian kingdoms emerged from its ashes: Napata in the north, with its capital at Foras, Mercuria in the center, with its capital at Dongola, and Alodia, or Alwa, in the south, with its capital at Soba. These kingdoms, which converted to Christianity in the 6th century CE, were the cultural and political heirs to the Kushite legacy, blending it with Byzantine and Coptic influences. They flourished for nearly 1,000 years, until the gradual Islamization and Arabization of the region from the 14th century onward. The rediscovery of Nubia. 4 centuries, the Nubian kingdoms were little more than a footnote in histories of Egypt. Early European travelers, like the Italian Giuseppe Ferlini in the 1830s, dynamized pyramids in search of treasure, destroying irreplaceable monuments. Serious archaeology began in the early 20th century, but the greatest leap forward came with the UNESCO salvage campaign in the 1960s, when the rising waters of Lake Nasser threatened to drown the ancient lands of Nubia. This international effort brought to light thousands of sites and solidified our understanding of Nubia's critical role in world history. Epilogue: The enduring legacy. The history of the Nubian kingdoms is a testament to African statecraft, resilience, and cultural achievement. From the early grandeur of Kerma to the imperial ambitions of the Black Pharaohs and the unique, indomitable spirit of Meroë, Nubia was never a mere shadow of Egypt. It was a parallel civilization, a land of powerful kings and sovereign queens who shaped the destiny of the Nile Valley for 3 millennia. Their legacy lives on not only in the stark beauty of their pyramids at Jebel Barkal and Meroë, or in the artifacts housed in museums, but also in the modern Nubian people, who preserve the memory of their ancient homeland and its glorious past. The story of Nubia is a crucial chapter in human history, a powerful echo from the land of the bow that continues to resonate.